What is up, folks? Justin Phillip here, and today this is my rundown of the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K Starter Kit. This is everything that I think you will need to properly run this bad boy, at the same time taking full advantage of everything this camera has to offer. You know, I reserve this for cinematography, right? And my GH5 is reserved for videography. Now, a lot of people would think those two terms are synonymous, but to me, they're not, okay? I use the GH5 because it is a video camera. I use it for my videography work, meaning all one-man band, live event, run and gun kind of stuff. I reserved this bad boy for all of my artistic endeavors for cinematography work, meaning stuff where I'm trying my best to be a legitimate artist in terms of picture quality, right? You practice your lighting techniques, you build on your lighting techniques, you practice with your color grading techniques, you build on that, right? There's a lot more that you have to invest in when you purchase something like a Blackmagic design camera. In my opinion, you're investing into a culture. Blackmagic has based their entire business model on supplying professional grade cameras to low budget indie filmmakers. That's their entire business model. So this is essentially a poor man's Alexa Mini, in my opinion, right? This is as close as I'm gonna be able to afford right now to a $65,000 equivalent, right? So you want to take full advantage of that, in my opinion. When you're buying this thing, you got to think in terms, you know, it does have the word cinema camera in its title. So if you think of other cinema cameras like the Scarletts or the Alexa Mini, when you buy those things, you're literally just buying the head. You're only buying the brain. So right out the gate, you're gonna need some kind of way to rig it out. That is why you see all these companies pumping out different cages for this particular camera. Now, in my opinion, I think the SmallRig half cage is the best bet for money and versatility. Okay, number one, I like having full freedom of this side grip. I've talked about that before in previous videos. But guys, come on. Don't build your cameras this way. Build them this way, right? Okay, and if you got a full cage with it, now you got more metal on this side, and now what? You're gonna put more crap over here on this side? Don't open yourselves up for that. You're gonna have this weird beast that's growing the opposite way of what you want it to grow. You wanna build your camera this way, so when you start putting it on things like a glide cam or a shoulder rig, it's all gonna make sense weight-wise, right? So that's why I say don't get a full cage, because that's just gonna have you building more stuff on this side. You're not gonna have full freedom of this amazing grip, and I still have full versatility here. I have a NATO rail on top, and I've added an additional little baby NATO rail, and we'll get to that in a minute. Now, on the bottom here, I've added in the additional $15 Metabones adapter, right? This is gonna put all the weight of your lenses onto the cage rather than on your camera mount. Yes, I have the Metabones on here. I would highly suggest that you stay away from native Micro Four Thirds lenses. Now, in my experience, I have owned almost all of those things. I had the little pancakes, the 14 and 20. I had the 25 mil, that's okay lens. I had the 12 to 35 2.8. They're all okay lenses. The build quality is crap, they're plastic. They have the worst wire bifocus thing, and that's, you know, it's because those lenses are made for people that live on autofocus. Me personally, the last time I used autofocus was when I was 15 years old shooting skate videos on a camcorder, right? Literally. I have never used autofocus since I've been using real lenses, right? So those Panasonic lenses are a pain in the ass when you're pulling focus because of the wire bifocus mechanism that they all have inside of them. Also, they have no manual aperture control. Also, the wire bifocus is gonna be even more of a pain in the ass if you ever wanna start graduating up to using a true follow focus, okay? Just don't waste your time with that. They're terrible in low light. You gotta think, you got a little baby Micro Four Thirds lens, and you're gonna put it on a little baby Micro Four Thirds sensor. Now you're just encroaching upon the tiny sensor that you already have. You're embracing that, and you're not gonna have any good shallow depth of field, especially with that 12 to 35 2.8. The image stabilization is incredible on that lens, however, terrible depth of field. You know, when I do nice close-up shots, I want to blob out the background. I don't want to see the background. In my opinion and in my experience, I can't achieve that with a lot of those Panasonic lenses. So also, here's the biggest thing about those things. When you graduate on, because let's be honest, cameras come out quicker than iPhones, right? Constantly upgrading my cameras. Guys, how long do you think you're going to be able to keep upgrading with those little micro four thirds lenses? You're not. You can't take micro four thirds lenses and put those on a red. You can't take those and put those on a mini or whatever. You're not going to be able to upgrade with those. Someone told me long ago, they said, Justin, you date your cameras and you marry your lenses, right? So you got to start thinking. Now, again, I'm talking in terms of people that are trying to build a career in cinematography, right? So in my opinion, those aren't the things to do. I've shown this before, but this is my custom Cine lens kit. This is not part of the starter kit. I'm just digressing a little bit here. A lot of you know this is what I do. I just tend to get caught down some rabbit holes. I think this is the way you're eventually going to want to graduate up and move to this level. I have got onto jobs where I don't even get hired for my little crappy cameras, right? Literally people will just say, hey, I like your skills, bring your Rokinon Cines, and I've used these on sets with Reds, with C300s, with Ursas, you know, so you gotta keep that in mind. I like to always be forward thinking. There's my little caveat about micro four thirds lenses. So literally every lens I own, they're all Canon EF mounts, right? They're all going to work amazingly well with this camera if you have a proper speed booster. Now, I highly suggest a Metabone speed booster. I have tested right here on this channel plenty of speed boosters. There is a plethora of different ones and they all come with their own negatives, right? When you buy things for cheaper, you have to know that you're gonna take a few shots in the knee just because it's so cheaper. My experience with the Viltrox EF-M2, which is currently on the GH5, the thing recording this right now, it does not work well with true cinema manual lenses. Every time I've hooked one of my Rokinon Cines to the Viltrox EF-M2, the whole thing goes black as if the lens cover was on it. It just doesn't work well with manual lenses. It also has terrible time with infinity focus. And I know what everyone is going to say about that. Don't waste your time telling me to rotate the glass or do this or that or jump on my head and rub my belly 5 times. It's not reliable. That's what I'll say. To sum it up, the Viltrox EF-M2 focal reducer is not reliable. This Metabones, however, is reliable. So I guess that's what you're paying the extra $200 or $300 for. It is worth it, guys. If you have to, get on eBay, look around. In my experience with camera gear, sometimes it's worth it just to sit, be patient, wait for the good deal, get the thing that you're not gonna have to upgrade 6 months later, okay? So that's why I go with Metabones. Now we can take full advantage of this sensor. This Metabone speed booster is turning our little tiny 4/3 sensor into an APS-C sensor, right? Now we're gonna get greater depth of field, we're gonna get better low light capabilities, right? The Sigma 18-35 does go down to a 1.2 because of the Metabone speed booster when connected to the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. That is the very definition of what a speed booster does, okay? You are tapping in, taking full capabilities of that sensor, right? The speed booster is tricking your sensor into thinking it is larger, okay? It's literally a magnifying glass. What I think is your first go-to lens should be is the legendary Sigma 18-35 f1.8. This thing is massive, it is heavy, built like a tank for a reason. This is still to this day the favorite lens that I have ever personally shot on. It's gonna be fine to work with your speed booster and your current 4/3 sensor on the Pocket 4K. This thing is tack sharp. Again, you can get it down to a 1.2, okay? That's crazy insane bokeh, super sharp. And here's the thing, if you're worried about, oh, I wanna get a better organic look, then guys, I'm including this in the kit, right? Just pick you up one of these. This is the quarter black Pro Mist filter. I've done a test comparing an old vintage Zeiss lens to a modern lens with the Tiffen black Pro Mist filter on it. The similarities are very similar. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. I'll put a link down in the description below. Okay, so this is just an extra 75 bucks for the black Pro Mist filter if you really want to go that organic route. Now, I would highly recommend getting you some sort of variable ND. I've done lots of tests here on different NDs. In my experience, the Samad is my favorite one. Those are the 2 filters you need to get first, the Black Pro Mist and the some sort of ND, right? Now again, this is not a cheap lens, okay? I understand that, but you are going to love it. Not to mention an 18mm to a 35mm on the crop sensor with the Metabones is still like, what, like a 24 to a 50? Those are pretty good focal lengths, you know? That's like 3 or 4 primes all in one. This thing is so sharp, it's not your normal zoom lens. People aren't going to realize you're shooting on a zoom lens when you're shooting on this. Plus, look at this. I'm zooming in right now. You see that? The lens is not changing shape. It's going to be a bitch to balance on a gimbal because it's so heavy, but once you do, You can have all that zoom range without having to rebalance because it zooms on the inside. There's just some great selling points. It's a beautiful lens, still my favorite lens. Now let's start talking memory. Now a lot of people want to go back and forth about this, but if you're getting this thing, first of all, I hope you're taking full advantage of it, shooting in film log Blackmagic RAW, right? I really hope that's what you're doing with this thing. If you're not, then I would ask again, why are you shooting on this thing? If you want ProRes, just go get you a GH5 or some kind of Sony camera and hook it up to the Ninja 5 and shoot ProRes all day long. I don't understand, guys. If you're getting this camera, why are you not shooting in RAW? Again, maybe that's just me. I am a Blackmagic fanboy. In terms of memory with this, the great thing about the new Blackmagic RAW is you can shoot in constant quality Q5, which is still a pretty decent bit rate, on these little baby cards. The trick is you have to make sure it's at least a V60 or a V90 rating, okay? And that's what these Freetail Evoke Pros are. This is a 128 gigabyte card, runs about 75 bucks, and I can get close to 80 minutes of Blackmagic RAW constant quality Q5 on this bad boy, okay? You can't go wrong with that, especially when you compare this to the price of a 128 gigabyte CFast card, okay? I've been using this for many months, no problems yet. It has been wonderful. If you want to go a bigger route, get more massive, and when you're comparing to CFast cards, this Samsung T5 SSD, there is a reason why everyone is buying this thing. One, it's super cheap for how much you get on it. This thing is 500 gigs. And it's super, super cheap when you think of 500 gigs. You know how much Blackmagic RAW you can get on this for 500 gigs? It is gonna be double what this card is, okay? So you're looking at, what, like 140 to 160 minutes of Blackmagic RAW? That's pretty awesome. So I recommend those two items for your memory. Cannot recommend V-mount batteries enough. This is the Soonwell B98V. This is their newest lineup of broadcast batteries. If you haven't seen my review on this, stop what you're doing, go check it out right now. It's awesome. You will thank me. This thing, look, I was shooting all day yesterday in Blackmagic RAW, and I still have full power on this thing. That's pretty incredible. And when you start shooting this thing, you're gonna realize like, oh, you need a nice huge power source, okay? That is why I have this rod mount on the bottom of my cage. Now, one day you're gonna wanna graduate up to using a follow focus. I'm not including that in the starter kit, but mainly you're gonna need the rails right away to hold on to your V-mount battery. This just tightens up, and now you have your V-mount. You will need to get some sort of either WaiPu to DTAP or the dummy battery, depending on what kind of plate you have, right? So now, look, I already have increased the stability of this camera. Now I can press it against here or whatever, you know, now I have some real stability with this thing. Which brings me to my next point. You're gonna need some kind of handles. That is why I went with the double NATO handle up top. I recommend this one right here. This is the SmallRig NATO handle. It's quick and easy. It comes with a pop-out little Allen wrench. I can loosen this up, slide it back and forth however I want. You slide it on like this, put it on there, tighten it down wherever you want it at, and now you have a badass top handle, you know what I mean? What I like to do, I always model my cameras after like a Red. Usually that's what I do. I look at all the different Red setups that are online. You know, on Instagram, you just type in the hashtag Red or just Cinema Rig or whatever the hashtag is, and you can start following those hashtags and really watching how people build their rigs. What I always like to do, because I'm always wanting to impress people with my rig, not people, I'm always wanting to impress clients with my rig, right? I don't want to show up with some little camera, right? So I build it out so they think, wow, now we have a massive camera, but underneath it all, they don't see what's really happening, right? So let's keep kitting this out so you can see what I'm talking about. So already you're starting to see more of a real camera come to life here. Now, I would want one more handle on the side here, so that is why I added this additional little baby NATO onto my cage, because I got this bad boy right here, another NATO side handle. The downside to this is that it is a little long. I don't like how long out it is like this. It doesn't work when I want to go to shoulder rig. This works great for handheld, right? Now I have 3 points of axis. This is putting weight on the back. I can push this against my chest. I have this like this. You know, this is good. I still have my top handle. I have really nice points of axis here. But when I move to a shoulder rig, that is why I went with NATO, because bada boom, bada bing, it slides right off. So just with this right here, I think you're gonna have a pretty stellar setup. Now again, this isn't cheap, but you're gonna have an amazing experience with this camera. Now if you wanna spice it up some more, I would highly recommend a monitor. That's where what my favorite monitor at the moment is, the Atomos Shinobi. I put a little NATO rail on the bottom of this as well, and that is because this thing is completely tiltable like this, and this is all tension, and then this is a slider. So this particular NATO side handle also has a NATO on top, and I slide this in, I lock that in. Now I have a little top monitor here. People say, wow, the screen's so nice on the Blackmagic. It is and it isn't, right? It's not that bright outdoors. It doesn't do well. It has an interesting glare on it. And plus there's just, the camera still doesn't offer a lot of exposure features that I would like my monitor to have. With the Atomos Shinobi, you can't go wrong. You get amazing monitor features. Plus it's 1000 nit brightness. So I've been in direct sunlight with this, no problem. When you're doing full-on handheld work, I can literally put this monitor all the way down, and now I can just be filming like this, looking at my monitor right here. You know, other than trying to do this, and you know, it just gives you a little more versatility along with some better exposure features. There's one little final element of this starter kit. If you wanted to go for that cool matte box look, but you know, stay away from the weight and really the necessity, because like, how many of you can actually realistically afford square ND filters? The good real ones. Not many of us. They are very, very expensive. So that's why I say just invest, do your research, find the best ND filter for you that fits for your needs. For me, I can't afford square ND, so it makes no sense for me to get a real matte box, especially when they're so heavy, and they're highly expensive as well. I have a more affordable option for you, and it still cuts down on overhead or side glare, and it is the Dinkum Shade. This thing is super easy. As you'll see, I have a cold shoe right here on top of my top handle. I screw this down, and now I wrench it around, bada boom, bada bing. Now, to a layman, it looks more like a video camera, right? It's got that weird shade on it. Oh, okay, yeah, that's a video camera. You could go one step above that, and if you really wanted to cut down on some stuff, you can go with this little wooden camera zip box. And if you do happen to have some square NDs, you can still fit one square ND in here, normal industry size, right? And then you can just stick this on the front of your lens. You will need the step-up ring, but essentially that's what you get, okay? So that is right there in a nutshell what I think is the perfect starter kit for the Pocket 4K. You have some great capabilities for recording RAW. You're gonna be able to record all day long. You're gonna get great exposure with this Shinobi. It looks like a high-grade professional camera because it is a poor man's mini, in my opinion. You have the speed booster, you have an amazing lens, so you have a great little kit right here. Now, eventually, to even add to the stability of this thing, you are going to wanna start building a shoulder rig. I am not really putting this shoulder rig in the actual kit because this thing, I have been building this shoulder rig for the past 2 years. As you can see, it's pretty intense, right? It has the Tilta Nucleus Nano on it. It has a soft gel shoulder pad. It has these wooden handles that are on rosettes that are rotatable. It has my monitor fits right here. This is Manfrotto. I slide my Manfrotto plate on here. Go. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm going to transfer my monitor down here. I have another NATO rail down here. Snap this on. Now check this out. I put this up here like this. Oh, I gotta take this stupid side handle off. Now, here is my Blackmagic shoulder rig. My tilt to follow focus is down here. My monitor's right here in my face. Again, this is all rotatable, right? I can move this. This whole thing moves as well. Like, check this out. See, if you wanted to really move this around, hit yourself in the nose or whatever you want to do. You see, all of this. My handles are rotatable. Look, my handle right here, I'm just moving my follow focus right here, you know, and everything's up here. The camera's right where it needs to be. If you can't afford a follow focus yet, you pull focus right here. I'm watching right here. Bada boom, bada bing. My battery's way in the back there. It's doing its thing. So yeah. Obviously, this shoulder rig, like I said, I've been building it for a couple years now, and if you were to part this all out, you can check it out. Every single part on this rig is in my Filmmaker kit bag down in the description below, and you can price it out. This shoulder rig would probably run you around 500 bucks if you price all of it out. So like I said, there are some way cheaper options for shoulder rigs, but I think eventually you're gonna wanna start thinking about that. There you guys have it. I mean, that's what I think is the best starter kit for this camera. I know it's not the cheapest. You know, these parts are all pretty expensive. I mean, what do we got here? We got what, 1,300 for the camera. The cage is like 75. Each one of these handles is roughly 50 bucks. The Dinkum shade is 35. This little rod base plate is, what is this? Probably like 15 bucks. The quick release plate you'll probably get with your tripod. Just make sure it's Manfrotto. These rails are fairly inexpensive, like 15 bucks. This, the plate, the V-mount plate is 150. The battery's 200. The Shinobi is 400. The little, these little NATO attachments, I think this one's 35. This is like 10. And then the memory. If you go with the Evoke Freetail card, let's say that's another 75 bucks. So there you go. Not to mention the lens is probably, you can probably pick it up for about 600 bucks used. And then the Metabones, this Metabones, you could probably pick it up used for like 400, hopefully. And then you can get the Tiffin Black Pro Mist for about 75 bucks. I'm not going to suggest this Samad, but I am going to suggest this Samad, but this is a $200 ND, but you know, you can look around and get different NDs. So that's the final price of this bad boy. Not exactly cheap, but if you can afford it, I would go with this exact setup. To me, I think you're gonna be thankful down the line that you did, and it's just only up from there. So start thinking globally, folks, right? Start thinking globally and acting locally, right? Remember, guys, no risk, no reward, and for now, that is a wrap.